Hello, this is Duncan Lievi, and this video is going to be about Roger Federer and his return so far, and to contextualize for my own self and for whoever's watching what this return means and how to go about this so as to not have our expectations too high or criticize if they're not met. So that's it. Federer returned to Doha 2021 after being away from the tennis ATP Tour for 13 months or 400 days and some, as was mentioned in the press conferences and many articles written about his return. He has returned after two arthroscopic procedures on his knee. He is using this portion of the tour leading up to Wimbledon and the Olympics as a tune-up so that his health is on the best it can be. He wants to feel 100% going into those tournaments, which are very expectedly his priorities for this season. He would like to win Wimbledon, and he would like to get that elusive singles gold medal at the Olympics, which has not happened yet. The first two matches of his return were, first one was against Dan Evans, which he won, and the second one was against Basilashvili, which he ended up losing. As for his play, I have to preface this by simply saying that this is in no way a proper breakdown of his game so far. He played his first competitive match in over a year, so I have to keep that in mind while I break down anything. He's 39 years old. That's the biggest factor that everyone has to keep in mind. You cannot simply expect him to bring the goods every time being that old. He still has the drive, he still has the motivation, he never lost the skill, but after being away for so long, you would expect rust to play a factor so early into his return. So we'll see. And we saw, actually, in the match against Dan Evans, we saw rust. His serve was slower, something that I completely noticed from the beginning, but you can, of course, explain that away because he's still slowly getting back to 100%, as he has mentioned, as has been published in many, many articles about his return as well. His serve was slower, but he was accurate, and he was serve and volleying a lot, which has been the theme ever since he returned in 2017. His errors started creeping up in the second set. The first set he won rather unexpectedly. I was expecting Dan Evans to win the first set, but then Federer turned it up, and his shot selection got better around the end of the first set. Second set, a bit choppy, a few more shanks than usual, but Federer, of course, you could judge by his demeanor on court that was to be expected. So he brushed it off, and then in the third set, he was visibly slightly slower because his movement had been, for the most part, sharp throughout the match. In the third set, he was starting to tire, but he capitalized on an uncharacteristically error-prone game by Evans at, I believe it was 5-6, when Evans was serving to get to the second tiebreak of the match, or the first tiebreak. I'm not sure about the scoreline. Anyway, so Federer broke to win the match. He could easily have lost that match. His level was good, but it was not where it usually is, of course, understandably. And after the match, he mentioned that he was getting tired around the third set, but he did play for 2 hours and 20 minutes, so it's a good judge. He can be proud, or rather happy, that he can judge his own performance well now. And in the second match, which was against Basilashvili, he was playing very well for the first set. Again, same theme, errors started creeping into his game around the second set. He was still going for serve and volley, but Basilashvili's ground strokes improved a lot, because in the first set, I believe, he was giving away some errors, making unforced errors on a higher rate than he usually does. So he cleaned up his game, Basilashvili did, and Federer did not have an answer to that. So the second set went to Basilashvili. The third set was when Federer tried to minimize the risks. He was still shanking the ball a lot, and his demeanor was still the same, that, he's happy to be there. He's judging his own game. This is not him expecting to win. He's just discovering his own level currently. He had match point, and yet Basilashvili saved it, and then he won, as in Basilashvili won, beating Federer. And Federer has now pulled out of Dubai next week, so he's not going to play there. He's going to keep training and focus on his health and his quest to return to 100% fitness for Wimbledon and the Olympics. As for expectations moving forward, I'm not sure how many matches we'll be actually seeing him in. He said he will be competing in 2 clay court tournaments, so I believe it will be Rome and then Roland Garros, the French Open. So those 2 are the expected tournaments that he would play, but that's all part of his prep for Wimbledon. And still, there's no guarantee that he will be where he wants to be by Wimbledon. It's just his hope that he will be all tuned up, warmed up, shaken. He would have shaken off all his rust by Wimbledon. That is all we as Federer fans or fans of the sport are hoping for. A lot of the people on the tour, a lot of the players, team, Zverev, Nadal, Djokovic are all happy that he's back, because Federer is not just a player. He brings a presence to the circuit about maybe a return to normalcy or the return of a titan of the game, and all of those things. And again, it also suddenly spurs the big 3 debate and the greatest of all time debate. Something that I've noticed, and this is not necessarily my opinion on the matter, I'm not touching up on that yet, but for the younger generation, which is not so young anymore, by the way, but still the younger generation, Federer does represent the character or the presence that the greatest tennis player of all time would have. Does not necessarily make him that, but that's the role that he has on the tour. If Federer's back, these younger superstars, younger tennis players who grew up watching Federer win 5 Wimbledons in a row, then winning that marathon against Andy Roddick, and winning for the French Open in 2009, breaking Pete Sampras' record at Wimbledon 2009 after said win over Roddick. All those things that these players saw Federer do has earned Federer a place in their minds which correlates or is very close to the greatest of all time role. That's all I'm saying. So when such a player is back, it certainly motivates the entire crop of these players who are vying to dethrone Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. So we'll see how that goes. It didn't happen at Australian Open. Djokovic made a very clear statement that we're not going to hand it over. And even Federer has said that they being the big 3, are not going to be resigning from their position at the top of the tour. They're not going to be backing down. They're not going to be letting the next generation knock them off the perch, essentially. So that's a good narrative to keep in check. No matter when it happens, it will eventually happen. Father Time is undefeated, but the presence that the 3 best players ever have, or at least in this current era, the best 3, the presence that they have is undisputed. They can play a bad match, but mentally, they know that they can pull out the goods when they need them the most. Mentally, Djokovic's prowess is very well documented. Nadal, it goes unsaid actually. And Federer, I hope that his mental game returns to where it used to be, because in these press conferences before and after Doha, I've noticed that, and I understand what's going on as well, but he said that he's happy to be there and winning would be better, but even if it's a loss, he's happy to be there. And I completely understand that mindset. But I also saw that mindset when he was talking about his defeat to Novak Djokovic, in which he said that, he came so close, it's a very massive opportunity lost, but he gets over losses easier now, which is great. I'm sorry. In saying that he's there for the competition and for the love of the game is the main fuel that will keep him playing for maybe years to come. But I'm saying he needs his killer instinct back. The killer instinct that, for example, Djokovic showed after he got injured in his match against Fritz at the Australian Open. And Djokovic stuck around the tournament. He said he would have pulled out of the tournament had it not been a Grand Slam. And then before the final, Mats Wilander was interviewing Djokovic and said, what about the next generation? What about Medvedev? He's on an undefeated streak of 20-something matches going into this match. How are you going to beat him? Djokovic said, I'm not going to hand it over. So, it sends a very clear message. And I would prefer and I would hope to see that same fire in Federer in due time. I believe he's missed that fire ever since maybe, and this is an approximate random estimate, but I believe he's missed that ever since February of 2018 or something, because that's after he won the Australian Open. I'm not saying his level dropped astronomically or something, but I just feel that he could benefit a lot and win a lot of matches that he otherwise loses these days, if he has that killer instinct and has that same hunger. It's not that he does not have hunger to succeed, of course, that's why he's still playing, but his hunger to win every match and defeat the other opponent without being very aggressive about it. I hope you understand what I'm saying. His desire to beat the other person or win the match has to be paramount in his list of priorities while playing a match. And I hope that will materialize, and I am pretty sure that will help him win more matches. Because, why am I saying this? Because the last two Wimbledon matches that he's lost, the final to Djokovic in 2019 and the fourth round to Kevin Anderson in 2018, both of them he had match points and then he lost. The second round match that he lost 2 days ago to Basilashvili, he had match point and then he lost. There's just way too many instances, more of them recently, where he's been one shot away from winning and he's lost. It does show maybe a creeping mental weakness. I'm not sure you can label it as such, because tennis is a very, very unpredictable game. But it's also normal, I believe, because Father Time is catching up to him. But mentally, I just hope he rediscovers the fire and the mental edge that he should have. He is a 20-time Grand Slam champion, considered to be the best player of all time by many people. So he brings that, and he should have that, not arrogance, but that aura around him, which was something that I felt in 2008 entering Wimbledon the most. That's when I felt Federer owning up to his stature, and you can argue that it cost him in the final when he lost to Nadal, but that aura, that self-awareness of your own level, and that expecting to beat other people, that feeling, I hope he rediscovers that, because he can. His improvement from match 1 to match 2 over the course of one day was amazing, and he can still beat the best players if he can be fit enough and he believes. So I hope that's what will happen over the course of this next 3-month period, and we shall see how it goes. There's Djokovic waiting in the wings, who is doing all he can to break down or track down and then exceed these records of Nadal, Federer, and it's probably going to happen. And I'm a huge Djokovic fan as well, especially of the way he handles crowds and how he delivers in the most difficult times, his clutchness, if you will. Nadal, always a fighter, never gives up. These three characters are the main reason why a lot of people are really watching, really following the sport in general. So let's see how it goes, and it's just a very exciting time with the return of one of the big three. With Nadal's French Open coming up, Djokovic will be looking to challenge Nadal and try to avenge the defeat that Nadal handed him at last year's French Open final, bageling Djokovic, which was amazing to watch as well. Until then, let's just be fortunate as well. And this is my last point about Federer's return. No matter what happens, no matter maybe he loses every match he plays this season, even then, his stroke making is still there. He beat Dan Evans. He almost beat Basilashvili. So he can get there. And he himself stated after losing that his level is not there yet, and he can feel himself getting better. He knows his own body better than anybody else, I would presume. So, that said, no matter what happens, enjoy. He's back. Just enjoy his play, even if he loses. In his own mind, considering that currently he's in the mindset of, win or lose, I'm happy to compete at this level, hear the crowds roaring again. Adopt a bit of that mindset as a fan, if you are one. That, just enjoy him being on the tour. It's been more than a year, and at least a lot of people, will realize how much they missed him after he's back, which has happened in these two matches as well. The outpouring of support has been great for him as well. We'll see how it goes. This video turned out to be a lot longer than I planned for it to be, but that's how these things go. Until next time, this is Duncan Lievi. Thanks for listening.